So it's a family-owned business that you're part of.
Yeah. So I'll
It's
kind
been around
of.
since 1800s.
Yeah, right. No, I'll kind of back up a little bit and then I'll let you know where we're at. So I graduated and then I was like working in like a normal, I guess you can call it a normal job. And I was like, man, my boss got promoted and then I had a new boss and me and the boss didn't get along. I was like, man, this kind of, this isn't really working out. And it was kind of not as fun as I thought it was going to be, like, working, in the I guess the real world. And so I quit, and then I did some traveling and came back, and I was like, all right, Dad, you've got this business, hire me. And he's like, whoa, it's like, you just quit your job, you did some traveling. He's like, you know nothing about real estate, nothing about St. Louis, so like, go find somewhere to work. And I was like, well, what do I do now? So I just started calling like the highest up real estate people I could think of. So I called Michael Steinberg, which at the time, he wasn't partners with Stan Kroenke anymore, but he developed the Chesterfield Valley. And you call his office, and THF, which is the at the time was 2F Fund, but now it's the Steinberg Group. And it says press 1 to speak to Michael Steinberg, and press 2 to talk to anybody else. I was like, oh well, shit, I'll press 1. Yeah, I'll plug it in. And he answers hello, and then I eventually ended up at his office. And he's like, I'm too old to train you, so I'm going to send you to my friend. And he sent me to Gary Gruey, which is where I learned the real estate business, which he was a shopping center developer, and it was kind of like, I would call it like the Harvard School of Real Estate. Took everything very seriously. He had his own plane. He would hop around to different like different parts of the country where he owns like, small like, unanchored neighborhood shopping centers. And I learned about lead generation then, and what that meant. And then when I was there for a couple of years, when I realized I was going to go work with my dad, who's all residential, I went then and worked at Keller Williams for a couple of years, or not even a couple of years, a year. And that's where I met Chris. I was there for a year, and the interesting thing to me is the stuff that they were talking about was the exact same stuff that Gary was talking about. So regardless of the real estate piece that you're in, whether you're a wholesaler or you're an investor or you're an agent, like it all started with basically lead generation. And Gary would call it cold calling, Keller Williams would call it lead generation, but they called it different things, but they were saying the same thing, is that like in order to create business, you've got to go out and find business, which starts with lead generation. So then I was with Keller Williams for a bit, and then now I've been with my dad, I guess for 7 years. And so we built a rental portfolio. We have like around 150 units, sort of scattered side, small multifamilies and single families that we manage in-house. So once we got to a certain point, and he's got his own stuff. I'm just talking about the stuff that since I've been with him we've done. And we kind of have like a small couple people that help us manage that stuff. And then when I first got here, he was kind of managing a lot of his own properties, and he had loans out there and stuff like that, but he wasn't constantly getting a bunch of wholesale deals every single month and every single week. And so I was like, well, how am I going to make any money? Because he wasn't paying me a salary. He was still like, go out and figure out your deal. So I was working as an agent too, and then I was just like basically trying everything to figure out wholesale deals. And I think our first year we bought 10, and I had the funding, because he would help with the funding, especially at first, which is, half the battle. And I was definitely given a lot of that, but as far as given the lead generation tools, I wasn't. And so it was like, okay, go out and figure this out.
So was your dad wholesaling it all before?
He was buying maybe like, and I don't know if these numbers are accurate. He was buying a lot of the foreclosures, which I never really got involved in. And then, maybe he'd buy off market, not at the foreclosures, maybe 5 or 6 a year, maybe 10 or 12 at the foreclosures at the time. So he's buying, call it 20 houses a year, managing his portfolio. And I don't know if those numbers are accurate. I'm just going
But
off
the intention wasn't really to be a big wholesaler.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was, it was him, and it was a couple office people. They were managing his portfolio, managing his loans. And at the time, he was not winding down, but he wasn't ramping up. He wasn't constantly figuring out, okay, how do I buy 1 or 2 off-market properties a week for the purpose of reselling them or keeping them. It wasn't, at that point, he was more on the back half of I'm managing my portfolio, I'm making this passive income. And then when I got in, I was like, well, how am I going to make any money?
Yeah.
Because in order to do it, you got to go find the deal. And so I think our first year we might have bought 10. And then, 20 and last year, and it kind of grew, each year. Last year we bought 62 properties. And this year we bought or under contract 26. So it's so it's definitely grown every single year. And I think what that is attributed to is that it's, waking up every day and, what we say in our office, chop wood and carry water. It's like, you do the same things every day, and all of a sudden,
Okay.
And so all of a sudden it adds up, and I have a network of people that are hopefully thinking of me because we were able to provide them with a simple and easy solution that are real estate agents or attorneys. And then we tested a bunch of different marketing, so then we figured out this mailing piece works. And then we tested more marketing and figured out this radio messaging works, and we found the right website people. And so all of a sudden it went from me making 200 cold calls a day to doing some mailers and doing the cold calling, then doing the radio and doing the cold calling. And then all of a sudden, the way I was trained, the way I think of it is I had all these different spokes, these lead generation spokes that were able to constantly produce deals. And so I've got a wheel that keeps moving forward every single week, because if the radio isn't working for a month for whatever reason, I've got other spokes that are bringing in other business, and so the wheel just keeps going on and on. And the more you test this stuff, the more you realize what's working, what's not. You can reinvest back into the business, and the machine goes on. And as long as the money you're reinvesting is far greater than the money you're bringing in, hopefully you're making pretty good income.
Yeah. You guys understand all that? So let's unpack it though.
Yeah.
So you first are trying if someone's wanting to first get into it.
Okay, when I started, I this is going back before they used to grab those signs.
Because a lot's changed in even 8 years of
The wholesaling
that we've
business.
had. Yeah, I mean, you used to just like I was talking about this the other day. For $1,000, I could send postcards. I don't know how it was in KC, but $1,000 I could send postcards and get a deal, almost guaranteed every single time. I don't think you can do that now. I think if you spent $1,000 in postcards, it'd probably be a waste of money.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think 1,000's probably light. I agree with that. It's probably light, but also the price point has gone up too. So what I've experienced is our spreads, even though it's just as competitive in a rising market, our spreads actually grew per transaction as well. So I guess the answer to your question is that's true, but inflation has doubled the cost of postcards probably anyway. So I don't know, maybe it'd be $2,000 a day. Maybe it probably costs us. I think it costs us $3,500 in postcards to make one deal. So I guess the answer to the question is it's true.
And then how are you tracking that? How do you know that number?
How do we know the number? So every 6 months we reconcile our costs. So if I'm spending $1 on postcards, that dollar is correlated to a line item on our QuickBooks account, and it adds up every single month. And if we do a deal, we take the profit on that deal, and we also we match it up to the cost or the expense or the investment that we did to get that deal. So we know about how much it costs per deal for us to get a deal, and we also know how much money we made at the end of the year, how much profit we made on each market piece.
On that lead source.
On that lead source. Yeah.
And do you guys have specific QR codes or different phone
No.
numbers?
Okay. So we're getting better at being more purposeful. For the longest time, it was me on on my own Excel spreadsheet. We made about 20 grand on this deal. I'd put it on my spreadsheet, and 6 months later, I'd ask our bookkeeper, hey, how much do we spend on postcards? And I would add up, okay, this is how much we made on our postcards, this is what we spent. Now we're getting a little bit more purposeful where each postcard, we have a couple different variants, they all have their own phone number, so we're tracking them even more granular to see okay, this is working, this is getting opened. And so I know if I've spent this much money on postcards, I'm getting this amount of return. Okay, it meets our hurdle on what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and that way you can do more of that.
You can do more. That's exactly right. I know for sure that I make the most money off referrals from agents and attorneys, and so we're very purposeful and not only nurturing those relationships and proving ourselves every time we go out to a house that, hey, we're going to provide you the simplest offer. We're going to make an effort to make sure you, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, make the most money from this transaction. by also pitching in on their commission or maybe paying for their full commission itself, but also reinvesting into like parties and holiday gifts and just letting people know that like we appreciate their business. Because I've had agents tell me in the past, like, oh yeah, usually when I call an agent, I'll say, I know you have other investors you work with. I'd like a shot at making an offer on next time you have a property you sell as is. Here's a little bit about our process. Could I have an opportunity to compete? It's probably good for your client, and I believe long term it could be good for you too, because we have experience of making the process super easy. They do that process, and then over time, we show that we care about them. And I've had agents tell me in the past, like, yeah, I used to always sell to this person, and I only talked to him if I was calling him, but like you call me and you're showing me that the business that I'm bringing you is important, and I think that goes a long way. Because people like that. I like that too. If I send somebody a lead and they don't get back to me, I'm like, okay, well, like at least you could have called me and said thank you. And I know it's silly and it doesn't make any sense, but it's just human nature.
No, I've bought tons of properties from wholesalers, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get in good with them, so they're going to send me the next deal, and then they don't, and then I don't want to do business with them in the future. I know I'm either overpaying or and it's like it's not a one-way.
Right. Yeah, relationships have to go both ways.
So,
for sure.
It has to be beneficial for both. So, and I know you're calling agents because I was telling people about you speaking, and they said, oh yeah, he calls me all the time. And I go, well, that's good, right?
Yeah.
Because now they have another tool in their pocket. I think the other thing, just, that you're going to close. Like, people know that you're going to close on a deal if you put it under contract as well. So I think that helps.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's like the baseline of like service to your agent. Like if you're planning on buying a property and it comes off a referral, like the bare minimum is like, yeah, you have to close. Because once you don't, like, even if it's for good reason, you're ruining that reputation, because the bottom line is like you didn't get the job done. So like if you're trying to build relationships with people, at bare minimum, the bare minimum of your job is if you write a contingent free contract, then you close on the contingent free contract that you wrote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is anybody working with agents or calling agents for referrals or no? What does wholesaling in St. Louis look like compared to Kansas City? Same thing?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Similar markets.
Yeah.
As far
Have
as
you met
using-
do you know the guys from New Western?
What's that?
New Western?
Who's that?
God, what's his name?
Condit,
Huh?
or Condit, or
No. Well, they're in Kansas City, and they also just came to St. Louis market.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They're all over the place, right?
Yeah. So they're in several different markets. But I mean, is it what he's saying? Is that working in the Kansas City market as well?
As far as using
As
realtors?
far as referrals go, and
I mean, I use realtors if they have deals that they haven't been able to sell within 30 days or 60 days, or having trouble selling them. 'Cause we have solutions that can solve it.
yeah.
But as far as using them, you eat what you kill. So if I'm on a filter of yours and I get a property, if I buy a property from you, you automatically get the listing. So I expect you to be sending me properties in the same return. So it's kind of
So you're having them actually send you properties.
what's that?
You're having them set you up on a search.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a specific filtered search that
Yeah.
we like to have different types of properties for niche.
Yeah.
For-
how,
for-
how many are you getting too many properties to analyze off of that search?
I don't think you can.
It's
have
pretty.
too
It's
many.
pretty narrowed down.
That's why you
Yeah.
narrow it down
Yeah.
to a specific filter. For example, houses, expired listings, I'll have that. Houses
Yeah.
sitting 30 days or longer, I'll look at that. And then I will have a specific buy box that we look at, that I send them. And then I even go one step further and give them a little script that I want them to say, like a little 3-sentence.
Mhm.
Hey, when you contact this is what I want you to say, because I need to find out information.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, because I think that's a challenge with a lot of realtors is I call you and say, hey, I have a house that's worth 200, but we can get it for 190, and they're like, and it just needs a kitchen. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work because they don't know their repair numbers. So are you strategic on which agents you're contacting, or?
I think it's more about giving, like coaching them on the front end. If you have a client that says something like this, I don't really want to list it because I'm too stressed out and I just want a simple deal and I don't want to have 15 people to the house. Or they say something like, I just inherited this property, I'm kind of embarrassed. And you coach or talk through these ideas, these conversations that will come up if they're an active agent with their clients, and you talk to your agents and say, hey, when this happens, can you give me an opportunity to make them an offer? And even if you don't take my offer, at least that way they can use it as a data point when you do go to the market on what they can expect from an investor.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's more about them not analyzing at least the way I look at it. I don't want, if you were my agent, you analyzing the deal for me, but I want you to present an opportunity that I can make a decision, and then if that deal doesn't work, then we can pivot the conversation and say, hey, this is why it didn't work, but if that doesn't sell, but if you have another client that says something like this, think of me. Because they can definitely hear that when a client says, I don't really want to list it, and not a lot of agents, sometimes agents will say, no, but you'll get so much more if you list it. But if they're listening to their client just said, I don't want to list it. Got it. Well, I have a friend that will take care of me on the commission. You don't have to worry about it. He's going to come in and make you an offer. It's not going to be market value. It's not going to be the most money possible because he's got to make it. He has to make money as well. But he'll come in and he'll make you an offer free of charge. Do you want me to bring him in? And a lot of times that'll open up an opportunity for us to make an offer.
Yeah, at least they have that offer in their pocket, where they know.
Yeah, I mean, like the reality is, like they already said, they don't want to list it. They're stressed out. They already told the agent that. Well, that's generally a person that we can provide value for because we can simplify the solution for the agent and for them. Maybe they've got 4 kids at home and they can't clean up the house to get it ready for show ready. Like all of those are buzzwords and reasons why an investor may or may not be needed in this situation. It's not because we're going to maximize the price. And as long as they understand that if they're going to sell to me or another investor, they're not going to get the most money possible. They're going to get the simplest solution. Like then, sometimes we can create a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people don't understand. Like, Dan and I have a friend who's always like, why would someone do that? I'm like, there's a lot of people that don't want to deal with the hassle, or they inherit a property. They don't need the money. Like they just want to. It's more of a burden for them that they have to get rid of this house.
I think like for new people especially, like assuming that someone is going to make a decision based on the fact that you are going to make the decision can get you into trouble. Where if you just go into it as okay, this would be a solution, this is how I can provide you a solution, does that match your needs? You're more likely to not miss on the deal because you assume that they won't take your offer or you can't provide value because they're asking too much.
Yeah. So, all right. Are you going to a lot of networking events or?
I used to.
Used to?
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to everything. I'd listen to probably hours of podcast, hundreds of hours of podcasts, and I went to the Faster House meetings and the one at Southside Investment Club. I used to go to all those and like intentionally meet people. Now, like where our business is, never in a million years, 7 years ago, did I think I was going to buy 25 houses in the first 3 months. I didn't think that I would ever, that was even physically possible because I was on the phone making cold calls all the time. But now I don't really know if networking is the best use of my time, but figuring out a way to, create systems so we can scale, because I believe that when the systems are set up to where it's not totally overwhelming doing this, that we could, based on my experience, we could then turn up, more spokes or whatever you want to call it to create more business.
Yeah. And you have other people helping you with lead generation, or is that primarily you?
No, it's primarily me. My brother works for us now. He handles all of our traditional real estate stuff. Like, so if somebody comes and they're like, let's just say it's a friend or family, or that wants to sell their house retail, or we go on a lead and they're like, yeah, I really want to get this much money. I'm like, well, I can't pay that, but my brother can list it for you. So that's helped a big time by not taking on any of like the traditional retail stuff. But then as far as like the lead generation goes, it doesn't take that much time to set up a mailing campaign or do some radios or whatever. So I'm pretty much managing. He handles a lot of his traditional retail marketing, but as far as on the wholesale side, I handle the majority of the marketing stuff.
Yeah. What are you seeing as far as working a lead? I mean, are you setting an appointment after the first contact? Is it important to, I mean, how many, are you calling these people for 2-3 months?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. People, you hear, the deal is in the follow-up. The deal is in the follow-up. Sometimes the deal is right when they call you. Other times it's in the follow-up. And I'll give you an example. We do a lot of work around Wash U. Like, I really like the neighborhoods around Wash U. We rent them out to college students, and we buy them and resell them, whatever. It's pretty close to our office. We got a call in January off a postcard on somebody that has a house near Wash U that I was interested in buying, and like she called me. I want to sell. I inherited this property. I want to get rid of it. I said, great. Let's set an appointment. She's like, well, my knee hurts. I'm not ready to set an appointment. It was something like she wasn't very mobile or whatever. She couldn't set the appointment. I was like, okay. When I get back in town, because I was leaving town, I'm gonna call you and let's set an appointment when I get back. I called her. She didn't answer. I called her the next day. She didn't answer. Called her the next day. She didn't answer. And I called her 2 times in a row the following day. Because like, what I've learned is that if you just keep calling, eventually they'll answer. I called her, and I thought she was going to be like, stop calling me. But she's like, oh, yeah, I definitely want to set this appointment, but I can't get there because my knee. I was like, well, you can't get there because you can't walk. You can't get there because you can't drive. Like, is there a reason? She's like, well, my knee. I was like, what if I came and picked you up? I could take you to the house. I'd be happy to walk through it. No big deal. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that yet. So I was like, okay, can I call you back in a couple weeks? She said, sure. I said, okay, do me a favor. Save my number as house buyer, and well, when I call, you recognize my number. And also, if something happens in the meantime, please reach out. She said, oh, okay. And then I called her. She didn't answer. And I called her. She didn't answer. And I just talked to her today. We set an appointment for Friday of next week, which I would have wanted to set it for like that hour, but she's wanted to push it off. So we'll see if that goes through. But the bottom line is, I might have called her 30 times, and she may have only answered 3 or 4, but I really want to buy the property, and so that's sometimes what happens. Yeah. So now when I'm spending time on the phone, it's usually in situations like that, more than like just straight up cold calling, new contacts. I can take this off. Also, just a side note, sometimes I do this often. If I want to get in touch with somebody and they don't answer the phone, I call them twice in a row. Because nobody answers calls they don't recognize anymore. But if you get the same call twice in a row, you're more likely to answer that phone call. And it's amazing how much more success I have if I call someone twice in a row than if I call them today and then I call them tomorrow.
Yeah, you said something interesting too, because I don't know if it's happened to anyone in the room, but like sometimes I'll see the same number calling me over and over and over, and find like, okay, this same number has called me. I almost know the number.
Right.
And I answer it.
Right.
Like, it's usually
right.
spam or whatever, but yeah, eventually I answer.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like, I always feel like, oh, I'm going to be such a burden to this person. She's going to hate me when I finally get her on the phone because I've called her so many times. But she answered the phone today. She's like, hey, Chad. Okay, I guess not, Like, she wants to do business with me. She's physically not able to leave her house for whatever reason. But when she is ready, like, I want to be right in front of her, because everybody knows that she's probably getting another postcard today and maybe tomorrow. But if she's probably already has in her mind, okay, Chad's gonna buy it. I just got to get to the house.
Yeah, that's true. So postcards, radio. I mean, for someone just starting out that has $1,000 to spend in marketing.
If I were, and this is how I started, because you've got to learn how to stumble through conversations with sellers. I would start with cold calling, because it's the cheapest way to get in front of decision makers or speak directly to decision makers. And so, if you want to focus on multifamily property and you want to buy multifamily property, then you can pull a list probably for $500 and get a dialing system for $300 a month, and you can spend 2 hours a day making 150, whatever number of phone calls your goal is a day, with the goal of touching 5 people that own a property that you're talking directly to the seller. Because ultimately, that's how decisions are made when you're talking to another decision maker, and that's how the property is sold when you have something of value, an offer, and they have something that you want, a property. And so the quickest way and the cheapest way to get there is to get on the phone.
Yeah, and then are you documenting kind of what's working in the conversation, what's not working, questions you're asking? You're learning during that process. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, if you are getting on the phone and you're talking to 5 sellers a day, whether you're calling, whatever, absentee owners, or you're calling multi, or whatever you're calling, like you learn how to have those conversations. So that way, once you do close a deal or two or three, you put some money in your pocket. Now you've got mailers going out and people calling you. You're already better at those phone calls than you would had you started cold and spent your money. You're less likely to destroy the dollars and the incoming calls that are coming in by not being versed and experienced of getting on the phone.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd hate to spend money on radio and then you get a lead and you have no idea what to say to them, and you're just
Or you
not
just don't feel
converting.
comfortable
Yeah.
or whatever, and you're less likely to convert because you spent less time on task. It's no different than you in the gym. You spent hours beneath the barbell. Your muscles are going to pop right in there. Where someone that spent hours on phones feels very comfortable when they do get an inbound call.
Yeah, nice. So besides cold calling, I mean, what resources are you looking at? Are you looking at, have you done anything with ChatGPT? Script, top 5 give me scripts for wholesale.
No.
Where do you find your scripts at?
Let me think about that for 1 second. So, at one point in my career, I kept missing deals, and I couldn't figure out why I'd go in the appointment, and they would decide, I'm going to call my sister, and then they wouldn't sell it to me. And so I went back and I wrote down what I'm trying to accomplish. And I don't know if I'd call it a script, but I wrote my own questions down on what I was trying to accomplish when somebody calls in, and what I'm trying to accomplish when I go out to the appointment, and what I want to be thinking about when I'm there. And it really helped kind of ground me on okay, when somebody calls, I'm trying to accomplish something, and that something is getting information about their property and setting an appointment. And so what's the best way to do that? Through questions. And scripts are tough, in my opinion, where if you're trying to follow a script, but if you have a guiding questions that you want to give to those people to get information, that's what I found easier than having I need to say this word after this word after this word, because it doesn't always flow. But if you know during the question you want to say, hey, it sounds like a nice house, is there a reason you want to sell? That's just a question you have to work into the conversation.
Yeah, I think you nailed it too. It's you're not trying to buy their house over the phone. Really, the objective is to get an appointment.
Yeah, I think
View
the
house.
question, the objective is to find out why they want to sell and to set an appointment. And if you get lucky, to find out how much they want.
Yeah.
But if you know those reasons, you know that they have a reason to sell, you have an appointment set, you know what they want, well, now all you got to do is go look at the house and find out if you can pay it.
Yeah. So what's your conversion approximate, once you get to the house?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you think it's fairly high, or are you going on?
Okay, so I think that's a challenging question to ask, because when you go to a house, I can only pay a certain amount. And so, I think looking at a conversion on properties that and this is, we don't track it, but I'm trying to think about what's the best trackable number is properties that sold for a price point that I could have paid. What's my percentage of closings on that? Because if you're new and you're going on a lot of appointments, 80% of them are probably going to be properties that you can't even the price that they want, the price that you can pay is too far apart that it's not really a lead, in my opinion, worth tracking. But if you follow that lead and you offered 50 and your competitor paid 51, that's a lead that you missed and you could have gotten. And so to me, that's a deal worth tracking. So anytime you make an offer, following that and seeing what your conversion is versus a property you would have been able to pay that number and didn't get or did get, I think that seems like a better metric to track.
Yeah. But as you do this longer, you're getting better at not wasting time viewing properties that you probably wouldn't have any chance to buy. Should people go on those properties appointments even though they know they're probably not going to buy
I
it?
think getting in front of sellers is what's most important when you're new in the business, because you'll learn something. They'll say something that you wouldn't have known. You'll learn what certain parts go to. Because sometimes especially when you first start, sellers say stuff about the house I don't even know what a pier is, and then okay, now I learned because I went to that house. I don't know what an architectural shingle is. I didn't know that replacing a clay roof requires putting a piece of felt underneath. So you learn stuff about the house. You learn how sellers also react to different comments you make. Like I also learned that going in a house and saying, "Ooh, that mold looks scary," is not the best way to make the best reputation to the seller. But going and saying, "Yeah, we've seen mold, we've seen stuff like that before. No big deal. We're really liking the bones of this house," makes the seller feel good, and they also think, "Okay, this guy actually likes my house. I'd rather sell it to this guy." And this guy's offer feels fair because he told me many times he liked my house. Where if you go in and you're like, "Ugh, these floors don't make sense. This layout is horrible," it puts people on the defense and they're less likely to want to do business with you because you are kind of a jerk.
Especially if that's their home, what they're living in, right?
Yeah. Or they inherited it from their mom. Their mom was living there. Now I'm saying, everything's got to go in this house? Like, that's not very nice.
Yeah. Sometimes it's reality that it's outdated,
But they know.
Yeah.
They know. Sellers know. That's why you're in the house, because they want an investor, because they know their house is outdated.
Yeah.
So there's no, from my experience, there's no reason in even saying almost anything negative about the house, because they already know. That's why you're there. That's why you're the investor that's there. Because if they thought it was perfect, they would call an agent and list it.
Yeah, true. So, cool. Questions?
Do you have relationships with lawyers too? Did you say that?
Yeah, so like a lot of houses that we've bought in the past are like going through probate, where you're dealing with the executor of the estate, and so like building friendships, relationships with attorneys, where they know that if they have a client that needs to sell as is, they can go to you. Yeah, we work with, and they're harder to get in with, I guess would be the right way to describe it. They're harder to build a relationship with them, but if you do, like that's their business, is working with people that inherited property, they can be a really good lead source.
So you just mail to them or what?
No, I mean, like when I first started, you can get a list of people that are like specialize in probates, or you can get a list of houses that went to probate, and usually it's got the attorney on there. Like I call them, kind of explain who I am, go by and introduce myself so they know what I look like. And then over time, like maybe they would get like a couple pieces of mail, from us, like, "Oh, we recently helped this person," with like a little testimonial, and then try to nurture the relationship from meeting them in person is usually what I found to be the best next best step.
Where do you get these lists from?
You can go to usprobateleads.com and you can get a list of probate properties from there for sure.
I feel like everyone just had a big meal before they came. It's quiet. What about experience, shares? What's working for other people in the room? Or
What kind of marketing lists do you market to? Is it probate mostly, or is it foreclosures, or?
Yeah, we do both. We do some mail that like is like specifically from our office, and then some through I forget the name of the company. Yellow Letter Headquarters is who we use, and we do like if it's some of them are the niche lists that like are recently inherited properties lists that would come from our office, and then some are like like absentee owner lists, or 2-story houses for people above the age of 65, like lists that you can pull a bigger list.
What pre-work are you doing prior to your appointments to help you assist
That's a
with
good
your
question. This is something I also, when I went back, I learned, like, when you go into an appointment, you want to know exactly what price you can pay for this house. So, like, going into an appointment where you're like, "Oh, yeah, I'll do my research afterward," could be a $50,000 mistake, because if that seller is ready to sell and you're not sure what it's worth, so you can't make that decision, it's potentially, like I was saying, a $50,000 mistake. So before going to the meeting, I want to know for sure what it's worth, what I can sell it for, if it's fixed up, and then I want to have an idea on what I can sell it for in as-is condition. You don't always know exactly what type of condition it's in, but it's like I like to know, okay, in as-is, I'd call it 1970s, not updated, what I can sell it for there, and I want to know what I can sell it for fixed up. And then I also like to have an idea of what I can sell for somewhere in that midterm. And so that way, when I go in, I can decide what I can pay based on the repairs that are needed to the house.
So you're approaching it with like a worst case scenario, if I have the HVAC, roof, plumbing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always best to start with what can you sell it for when it's fixed up, because
Okay.
you can go in and figure out what it's going to cost to get it there, and you do 0.80 of what you can sell it for, 80% of what you can sell it for minus the repairs. That can be probably your highest offer, but you have to know what you can sell it for fixed up, and you can work off that number. So before I get ready for a meeting, I want to know that number, and then I will take pictures of the MLS screen on houses that recently have sold nearby, and I'll drive them. Maybe I'll look, and maybe I'll get out of my car and I'm curious what this yard looks like. Because when you get there, I want to be able to make a decision whether I can buy it. Now they're not always ready, and there's no reason to pressure anybody if there's no reason to push people if they're not. But if I say, hey, we can usually make decisions quickly. What does your time look like? She's like, well, if I got my offer, I'd sell it right now. I'm like, oh God, well, what's your offer? And then she tells me, well, I'm prepared to make a deal right now. Are you ready? Yeah, sure. I want to be able to have that conversation. Because sometimes people will say that to you, and if you're not prepared, because you're like, oh, well, I'll see it first and then do my due diligence.
So you're traveling with contracts and things?
I put it in my car.
Okay.
I'll have it in my car, be like, hey, look, I can make decisions pretty quickly. What does your timeline look like? And so they might say something like, well, I'm, doing my due diligence. But okay, if we came to a price that you were happy with, would you sign a contract today? Because I could probably get that done for you. And then they're like, yeah, I probably would. And then I'm like, okay, we negotiate the price, shake hands, say, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go out to my car, I'm gonna grab a contract, I'm gonna come back in, and I'm gonna explain everything to you. And then I can go through and I can explain the contract and hopefully walk out with a signed deal.
Yeah, and at this point, you're you know if you might hold it as a rental, if it's like an area of the rental or.
Yeah. I mean, like our office is in New City, so we like to keep everything, call within 20 minutes of the office. So I know for sure it's not going to be a rental. Sometimes we buy it and we rehab it, and I'm like, my God, I just spent 3-4 months rehabbing this thing. Like, I really don't want to sell it, because it's it's just a lot of work, and then you pay taxes on it, and then you're back to ground zero. So sometimes things become a rental, even if I didn't initially think it was going to be, but we generally have an idea. But our numbers really don't change. I want to buy 80% less my cost, and whether I'm keeping it as a rental or not, that's where I want to be. That being said, if it's a 4-family in Clayton, or if it's on Pershing and University, one of these really nice markets, you're not going to get those numbers. You got to look at it a little bit differently. But for the most part, if I'm going and buying a meat and potatoes house, in Crestwood, that's where I want my numbers to be.
You said 80% less cost?
So whatever it's worth fixed up, if it's worth $200,000 times it by 0.8 less, your repair cost. And I throw everything in there in the repair cost. My holding cost, my commissions when I sell it, anything that I look at as a cost, I want to buy 80% of the ARV less that cost.
What tools are you using for your construction estimate?
Now I can pretty much eyeball it. I know that I put luxury vinyl in, it's $5 a square foot. I know if I put a pitched roof, it's going to be probably $5,500 for a roof and $14,000 for a kitchen. But I think if you go online, you could probably find a repair estimator.
HomeWise is good for that.
What's that?
HomeWise?
HomeWise. Yeah. So there's probably software out there that can help you do that. And then once you do, 200 rehabs or whatever, you just start learning what stuff costs, and I'm still wrong. I'm always low, so
Yeah.
whatever it is, add a budget in there for being low.
Because with the price fluctuation,
Yeah,
material-
I would do like a 10% contingency on whatever your repairs are.
Gotcha.
Just assume the sewer lateral is probably gonna be bad in St. Louis. There might be a repair program for it, but some of the repair programs, I think they're not transferring over now.
Yeah,
right?
or they're 3 months out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm under contract. I'm closing next week. I don't have time for this, so we're digging up this ourselves.
But, and then as you're getting your contractors ready too, I know people walk properties with their contractors. I think that's difficult too, because this lady you're tracking down, maybe your contractor can't meet you at that property and you've been trying to.
Yeah, I mean, like,
You know?
if you can, or if you can write an offer that's contingent on a one-time walkthrough for your contractor, not to bring, or wholesalers all the time, they write a contingent, but, if you're like, hey, I'm pretty confident I can buy it, my budget is 65 grand to fix this house, you're saying this in your mind, my budget's 65 grand to fix this house, you tell the seller, hey, I'm pretty confident I can buy this, I really want to make it work out, can I put you write the contract, and then on the bottom of it, you say, hey, I'm going to need 48 hours to walk through with my carpenter, to make sure my numbers are right. People understand a due diligence period. They're not, most people, not everybody, but, and if it's not as competitive, people understand, like, hey, I just want to make sure that I'm making the right decision, because there's a lot of money and I don't want to lose it, and people get that. They're like, oh yeah, I get it, if you need to bring somebody in. So, like, the other day we bought something and, like, there was foundation issues that I was concerned about. So we wrote it in that I could have my carpenter come by and take a look at my foundation guy come take a look at it. And I came back the next day. It didn't turn out, it wasn't that big of a deal, and that was that. But they totally understood that, hey, it's reasonable to my, be able to have four eyes take a look at this instead of just yourself.
Come on, you.
Any horror stories and stuff you missed during your?
Oh, horror stories and stuff I've missed. I'll tell you this: I have lost more money by not being aggressive than by being too aggressive. And what I mean by that is, like, I offered 150 and somebody else paid 153, and I'm like, I don't want to go that high. They can have it. And then I look, they sent the cleaning people through and they have it listed at 189 and it goes under contract. So I'm not telling you to be over aggressive, but what I am saying is that when your gut says, yeah, I can, this is probably going to work out, like, I'm doing my math and, it might be a tiny bit tight with the market the way it's been and as thin as it is, like, you're most likely going to be okay. That being said, yeah, we've missed stuff.
If a deal doesn't work because of $1,000, it's probably not.
It's probably not a deal that you should do anyway. It's probably not.
Numbers are that tight.
Where you can get in trouble is, on the really high end stuff where you got a lot of interest carry, and you totally miss the mark on what the back end price is. That's where you can get in trouble. But if you're staying in the first time home buyer place, there's just a shortage and you can't build it, and so it's inevitable that somebody's, like, let's say you're looking at a house and the price is $50,000. Well, it's not worth zero, right? So it's worth somewhere between $1 and $50,000. You could probably get pretty close to what someone would buy you out for. So I guess what I'm saying is, do your due diligence, but also, at some point you just got to make the decision and do it. I'm trying to think about nightmares and stuff I've missed. For the longest time, and I had an advantage, I would put a contingency for my dad to come look at it. So in our contract, we had a partner review for 48 hours, and so I'd go under contract, my dad and I would go back, and so it would give me that due diligence and that, that backboard of him, which I guarantee saved me a ton of air. So if you're brand new, you could have the same contingency in there, but have the contingency for Chris or me or whoever to walk through to have your four eyes on there, to avoid making costly mistakes, because I'm sure I would have swung and missed more often had I not had that.
Would you take a deal at a higher rate if there were creative financing in place, like a subject to kind of scenario?
I have always felt that keeping things simple is the way we like doing business. Every time I don't understand something, like a subject to, and I'm not saying people don't make money doing it, but for me, like, if I have trouble understanding it, I can't explain it. They sure as heck, even if I could explain it, aren't gonna know what I'm talking about. So I've never understood the real creative stuff, and so we've always kind of stayed away from it, and just tried to keep things more simple.
So you're acquiring through an LLC?
We buy it in an LLC, yeah.
Okay, and then, so you reference first-time home buyers. How are you getting around if you are the,
FHA?
yeah?
That's what we're.
Getting around.
Are you just waiting the 90 days?
Yeah, I mean, if we're rehabbing, it's gonna take 90 days. If it's pretty clean and I'm just turning it, the way the law works is the contract has to be written after the 90-day period. Well, it's usually gonna be a 45-day close anyway. So I probably owned it for at least 25 or 30. You put it up, you go under contract, and what we've done is we've gone through all the due diligence period and then rewrote the contract with that same buyer to close 10 days later after that 90-day period has lapsed. So there's ways to work around it where you literally are under contract, they do all their due diligence, everybody's ready to go to closing, the 90-day period hits, you rewrite the contract the next day and you close 10 days later, which satisfies the lenders, everybody knows what's going on, but we've done it that way in the past. You know, maybe we forgot about the FHA situation when we sold it or whatever, they were the only buyer or whatever it is. As long as you explain to them that's the plan going forward, it hasn't. We've done it a couple times and it's actually worked out pretty smooth because they get the house and we just have to rewrite the contract, you know, after the 90-day period.
What was your question on creative?
Oh, no, I was just asking if he was buying anything subject to and if he would change his analysis.
Yeah, no, so
process.
he's the creative guy because like I
Some
said,
say you look at cash flow, you don't look at debt. You can, but you look at cash flow.
Yeah, I was just
And
curious.
it's just another exit strategy.
I do a lot of subject to, so I was just curious if
Oh, you do?
Uh-huh.
So can you explain a subject to? Like, who uses it?
Well, what do you mean who uses
Like, okay, so if, for instance, like I have a 3% loan,
Uh-huh.
and then you would buy it from me,
it? Correct. I would assume your loan.
you would assume my loan.
Essentially, yes.
Got it.
And,
And am I off the debt?
no,
No.
you're here with me.
That's the
We're
problem, is
together.
most people can't go and buy another property.
Yeah.
They can, you have a DCI clause, it's a declaration, a debt to income clause, you can.
I mean,
Because
if
they,
they're-
they
You
can.
have 70, you write off 75% of it the first year of the sale, the second, maybe 25% off. It's a debt to income clause that you slap on the desk, whoever your mortgage handler is running right your next loan, you say, no, this debt's being serviced by a third party.
Okay.
And do they have to see proof that it's being serviced by a third party, I guess?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just typically gotta make 3 months of the
Really?
monthly payments, that's all the proof you need.
Really?
I like
And the comfort level you've experienced with sellers that are doing it this way
Varies.
varies. Some people are like, well, how do I know you're going to pay it? And then some
Yes.
people are like,
But
oh,
you
that's-
write into your contracts protection clauses for them. So
But
my,
if you go, let's just say, you know, I'm buying Chris's house. He's got a 3% loan. Like, it makes total sense because my cash flow looks way better. The title goes in my name, and then I decide I stop wanting to pay it, and now he's on the hook to make that mortgage payment.
yes,
It goes back to the, yeah.
it reverts. Yeah. I mean, I don't do subject twos for buying homes. I've only done them for flips. So some of the things he's
You
referencing.
okay on them?
No, I've gone in it. Well, yeah, like rehabs.
Oh. And then it helps you not have to come up with the payment for the initial purchase,
Right.
and then you just use your cash or whatever, or, you know, a
For the
loan to
renovation.
renovate it. Yeah.
Mhm. And then we're buying them in trusts since they're in a deal with us anyway. We're just transitioning it to a trust where the seller is on the trust as well. And that allows us to avoid the FHA portion because it's essentially still their property. So I don't have to season the house at all.
Oh. And they don't.
How did, because we close on a sub 2 on Thursday, you put under contract and we close on it. We were reselling it Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So how'd you do that one? That one you just made mortgage payments.
You guys made the mortgage payments
Yeah.
for that for like a whole year.
Yeah.
I think you just made a year this year.
But
This
she
month-
didn't,
this
she
month.
didn't need any cash.
Yeah, up front I just give like 3,000, but
That's like a weird number.
I like multiply that crazy for the property I'm about to make, so it's a great deal. But the only issue was the attorney we used, the documents that we used on that one, we made a mistake, but I had a great relationship with the seller where she was in Hawaii, so I had to pay a notary to go up to her house twice, which cost like $300, but it was worth it so she can get the doc signed, so we can get to a closing table, but communication with her really helped. So it's that relationship thing with the seller.
She even invited you to
Tell yeah,
to come
Hawaii.
to Hawaii.
Yeah, she was like, come to Hawaii.
She even invited, she really likes them. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So, what was that called again? Where you can, they can write off their DTI?
Debt to income clause,
Okay,
DTI clause.
nice. Okay, that's good. So, interesting. Other questions, comments? No? It was really quiet today. It's because we're in this small room packed together. All right, what podcast books are you reading right now? Or what's one, maybe one of your favorite that?
I read a book called it's about marketing, which is good for this, by Donald Miller, I think, and it was called your story brand framework, maybe something like that. You look up story brand framework by Donald something. My favorite marketing book I've ever read. Yeah, I thought it was just very simply communicated about like the basis of marketing is to like show how you can provide value for your client. Nobody cares that my grandpa was a real estate investor and my dad was. All they care is that I can help simplify that process for them. Nobody cares that, we've been in U City for 100 years. All they care about is that we're interested in buying their property and we can hopefully provide them value.
Yeah.
And so keeping your client in the center of the universe and not yourself when you're doing your marketing is important.
Interesting. And then podcast, any that you're listening to right now?
None really business related. I used to listen to like all of them though, like especially if you get started, like you can learn something from anything. It's like I probably just about hours of podcasts, like business related podcasts or Bigger Pockets or Tom Ferry's podcast or and name a real estate podcast. I've listened to it. I listen to Keeping Current Matters every week because I find them to provide valuable in real time information about where the market stands, and I found them to be pretty accurate over time by listening to them. But I think you can get value out of all the stuff. It's just I go through phases, I guess, and when I'm listening to it and when I'm not.
Yeah. Were you involved in the blogs or anything on Bigger Pockets? Like,
No,
have you
never.
ever tried to target out of state investors to purchase these properties or sell turnkey properties?
Never. And part of it is because like we're a small operation, so
Yeah.
I would like to grow. And when my dad retires, like I have aspirations of like bringing on people to fill roles and grow a team. But like he doesn't really want to do that. It's just not in his DNA. He likes it tight knit and small, and so it won't work until he fully retires. So because of that, I've never had the time to like, okay, I'm gonna also build out, a network where I can sell to out-of-state people or whatever. Like, it's always been kind of, we buy it. If we wholesale it, we'll usually do that before we close. Otherwise, we clean it up and we put it on the MLS. And I'd say at this point, like, it's grown where 90% of the stuff we like exposing it to the entire market by putting it on the MLS. Whether we fix it up completely or just give it a spit shine or just haul it or whatever, because it gives us a chance to let the market tell us what's actually
Yeah,
worth.
and it seems like a good market for like a wholetale or just putting.
No doubt about it. No doubt. My favorite deal is the deal you buy for $115,000 or call it $150,000. You put $25,000 into it with paint, sand the floors, haul it, stage it, trim the landscape, and take out some of the scare, and you sell it to
handyman guy or someone.
or not even a handyman. You sell it to a young couple that wants to buy a house for below $250,000, and there are a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
So like if you can be in that sweet spot that it's the neighborhoods that people like, that it doesn't take a full gut rehab, but you can get it from call it 1980s to a little bit more modern where it feels very clean and fresh in there. Those are deals that you can turn really quickly and make pretty good spreads because there is such a demand for that type of product.
What's your opinion on 4x4 tile and bathrooms? like the famous.
You know, okay,
are you
so-
guys swapping that out? Are you painting it?
Okay, it depends.
Seems like people kind of like it.
I think that, I mean, I'll tell you this much: our new tile we do for all of our main bathrooms is we do like subway tile with an accent wall, and we're putting in like an army green or like a forest green tile, which is like looks awfully similar to the stuff that they were
Yeah.
putting in the 70s. The square tiles, depending on the price point, sometimes we'll glaze it. So I have a really good glazer. It's basically like a paint. It basically makes the bathroom white. You put in like, you know, a vanity with some color, like a blue or a brown that pops, like a hanging vanity, and, you know, some gold fixtures, and, you know,
Yeah.
it feels like a new bathroom.
Yeah, I had a guy at the gym the other day, and he was telling me like how cool his bathroom was. He was like, you know, probably early 30s, late 20s, and he's like, my bathroom's so cool, it's like retro, and it was that 4x4 South City,
100%.
New City
People
tile.
like it. I mean, it's
and they liked it.
yeah, it's charming.
So interesting, cool. All right, well, I appreciate it. You coming out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, thank you
yeah,
very
We'll
much.
hang out for a couple minutes and chat. So
Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.